right, welcome back to another edition of the Forts Athletics Life and Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Inferno. We're at Forts Athletics. We equip coaches and athletes with the tools they seek out in order to achieve their unique and specific goals. And I love this Coach's Chronicles stuff. This is the third podcast video we're recording on my way to school. It's really great to kind of like journal and just keep thoughts and things when going to school. So today, well, I guess this is the third one of the same day. It is Tuesday, February 8th. So for this episode, something a little different than the previous episodes is facilities. And the reason why I want to talk about facilities is as a group of Fredonia alum in our group chat this weekend, we got into not a heated conversation about facilities, but some alum, just by the tone of their text messages, got a little fired up when we were talking about the if you build it, they will come mentality or philosophy of recruiting and things of that nature. So Fredonia has a great field house. I threw in it, kind of. I'll explain that. It was built in 1983, so in 1983 it was state of the art. Up until that time, Fredonia had maybe like a dozen track and field, cross country, All-Americans. I think there was a national champion in there also. And they built a field house with a hockey rink and things. And the field house, it's 6 lanes, 55-meter track straightaway. And then it's a 4-lane, like 160 track. So it's very not of the norm, but for 1983 it was top of the line. Anyway, so when I was in college in 2000 to 2004, we had this field house, but we practiced in the field house for throwing the weight, but we had our meets outside. I'm going to post it on my Instagram because I think it kind of goes along with this theme of if you build it, they will come type of thing. So, let's see, the first 2 meets I threw in college, the fall of 2000, December of 2000. We were outside, my parents came, there's some pictures. We basically put a ring down on the sidewalk and we threw into a mound of snow with some flags for the sector. So nothing really official. Nobody really threw far of significance, but the marks counted even though we were outside with someone with a clipboard and a tape measure. But we had a field house, so we practiced inside, and like I said, we would throw outside. So fast forward now to 2022. There hasn't been a meet in that field house since I graduated. So I graduated in May of 04. Hasn't been a field house in there, or hasn't been a meet there since our alumni last chance qualifier meets my junior year. So the spring of 03 was the last meet held there. It was the last chance qualifier for indoor nationals, and it also kind of counted as like an outdoor primer for the spring season. And so it's been, I guess, almost 20 years that there's actually been a meet in the facility. So we were talking about facilities and like how there's so many more opportunities for kids to compete because there's many more field houses in this region. So you have Houghton College has a field house, Brockport has a field house, and NAS has a field house. RIT has a field house that you can run, meets. You can run two a day, 2 a weekend. So there's a lot of opportunities. So this is, like I said, February of 2022. So a few years ago, NAS did not have a field house. So then there were 3. Before that, Houghton didn't have a field house. So when I first started coaching the E8 at NAS, most of our meets were at RIT or Ithaca. And Brockport built it, and then Brockport built their field house after. So it was basically RIT or Ithaca. So Ithaca is like 2 hours from here, Cornell. So you can still kind of compete. But now there's 4 within, I guess, like an hour radius of each other. And we were talking about facilities and how great it would be if Fredonia upgraded their facilities. And this also was prompted by an alum that graduated in the late 70s who he just made this random post in the Fredonia alumni Facebook page about track and field. So we started running with it. So in our group chat, there's like 25 alum from all different decades. I think I might be the youngest in the chat, maybe one other person that graduated after me. So I'm gonna turn 40 in a couple weeks, and I graduated in 04. So there really isn't a lot of engagement with alum from the 2010s, really. So anyway, talking about Fieldhouse, and like some of these alum were really emphasizing the point of upgrading the facility because it will help with recruiting and will give us a better opportunity to compete in the SUNY conference and get better kids and all those things. And I respectfully disagree. I am not a proponent of if you build it, they will come when it comes to collegiate recruiting. There are so many more factors, especially at that level, that play a role in whether an athlete is going to come to your college, that I'm just going to guess that facility is probably not going to be the deciding factor. Now, however, all things being equal, if you're looking at a college that has a field house, one that doesn't, same major, same financial aid, okay, then maybe you would err on the side of going to that college or university. Otherwise, I don't see a field house at this level making that much of a difference. I did a project, I completed a project when I was doing my doc work at Fisher on facilities and budgets at the D3 level. This was for the Empire 8 conference. And the relationship that I found was coaching staff, not facilities. So coaching, the investment in the athletics department and specific sports, most highly correlated with that team's success in that specific sport. Not whether they had a facility or not, if that makes sense. So I did this, I wrote this paper in spring of 2016. So up until that point, let's see, Houghton had a field house, Ithaca, but they bowed out at the Empire 8 conference. Brockport had one. So if you're looking at like powerhouse teams, Ithaca was basically head and shoulders above everybody for their respective events. Now Stevens Institute in New Jersey had some success as well, but for the most part Ithaca, and they had the biggest budget and whatever. So anyway, so we're talking about this facility piece, and I interjected that, you know, there was a conversation had that I was part of. I'm not going to say which college or university, but the expectation 100 athletes would be realistic. And let's see here, is this going to work? Maybe that'll work a little better. Because of like facility upgrades and things like that. And I wasn't a big proponent then, I guess, because I think coaching is going to play a bigger role than the facility. And then also academics, location to or proximity to home is going to play a big role as well, especially at that level. But let's see here, we're running out of time on this episode, so we will continue it in part 2. All right, we're back to part 2 of our build it and they will come conversation. So our alum, we were just having this conversation about Fieldhouse and the ability to recruit better and attract higher caliber student athletes because of the facility that you might be competing in or be practicing in. And I respectfully disagree. I don't think that Fieldhouse is a top 3 for student athletes. I think academics plays number 1. Well, maybe financial aid would be number 1 from inner workings. Maybe that's 1 and 1A, right? Like if they have your major and they give you a good financial aid package, or you get a good financial aid package and you could settle for a different major. I see major financial aid being more attuned than financial aid and major, but that's just me. When I went to school, the decision to go to Fredonia over Geneseo had nothing to do with financial aid because it was the same. Had nothing to do with major because they both have great teaching schools. Had to do, for me, it was success of the team and some other shenanigans that happened that turned me off to SUNY Geneseo. But anyway, so building a field house and having a field house, I don't think necessarily correlates to having the best success at that particular sport. So track, for example. So if we look at like Brockport, for example, in the Suniacs, they have a nice field house. You would think that by having the field house in this area that they would win every single Suniac championship. That's not necessarily the case because of majors, where proximity of location to home, all these different factors play a role in it. So then finally we got talking about the rhyme and reason and the value, so the return on investment, and this is where these guys got really hot. So we have some alum at Fredonia that donate quite a bit on the track side. They graduated in the 70s, 80s. They're retired. Their kids are my age. Actually, most are older than me. I'm going to be 40. I turn 40 in a couple weeks. And they spend a lot of time at Fredonia, which I'll probably be that guy in 25 years too. So anyway, so in talking about that, you know, the field house at Fredonia hasn't really been run on in a meet for almost 20 years. When I visit, it just kind of breaks my heart because you see the efforts, you see the work that the kids are putting in, and I mean, the track is like 4 different shades of blue. So talk about 50 shades of gray. We're talking about like 50 shades of blue with just like repainting parts of the track that pop up. But anyway, in no particular, well, no, I guess this would be in order. I'm going to go 1 and 1A is going to be your major, and financial aid is going to be the difference. And major and financial aid. 3 is going to be maybe proximity to home. How close you are. Is it far enough away where mom and dad aren't going to come randomly visit? Or maybe it is really close. Maybe you went to that high school in that town and you're going to go to college in that town, which could happen in Brockport and Fredonia if we're using those examples. NAS, I guess you kind of can, but it's a little different. Houghton, the same thing. Like, it's not, I mean, it's possible. And then I think coaching more than anything is going to make a bigger difference, especially if a coach is able to advocate and share that. Well, not really advocate, but really share and discuss that's not really about the facility per se, but about the quality of athlete and the quality of coaching you're going to get in that facility. So when we were at NAS, I mean, we had a national champion that threw in a field house that we were never able to mark any throw ever. So we really had no idea what was happening in practice besides release, staying in the circle, velocity, things like that. But for the most part, we really didn't know like distances at all, which is great. And we had a lot of success like that. You know, All-American, basically throwing in an auxiliary gym with mats, breaking walls and hitting fire alarms and things. And similar at Alfred State, like we practice in a field house that's not ours. twice a week, and you're still able to manifest success, and achieve that. So I think it's going to come down to your coaching, how well you can communicate to the recruits, how well the current team communicates to recruits, because that's probably going to sell it more than anything if the athletes enjoy being there and they're able to sell that program. But the notion of just having a facility and they will come, I don't know. I just don't. At the D2 and D1 levels, like almost every facility or every college has real nice facilities. If you're going to throw, you're going to be a big-time thrower. You've had national champions that come out of Ohio all the time. Ohio State, Ashland University, just for 2 examples. I've been at Ashland in December, January, February. It is freezing cold. Nothing to write home about. Same thing with Ohio State. So you're still able to produce quality athletes. Do they have field houses? Yeah, but it's bitter cold. And the facilities are not as good as what I've seen in Florida or Arizona State, for that matter. So I don't know. When everybody has a field house, I don't know if those things are going to make as much of a difference. If you have a timeline of success, or as a coach you've had success at a specific university for X amount of time with limited resources and things, then I think that might be more of a deciding factor than anything else that we talked about besides the financial aid and major. Because at those universities like Penn State, Arizona State, you have like 350, 400 majors to choose from. Where at Alfred, NAS, Fredonia, maybe like 40 or 50, and the financial aid is really going to be kind of limited based on if you're going to a SUNY school or a private school. There's only so much negotiation you can have. But I just think the conversation is really interesting when we talk about facilities and things, that one might automatically assume that you're going to get the best athletes immediately without necessarily adding anything to those situations. So having world-class facility, but maybe you don't have great coaching, or maybe the athletes they are competing because they enjoy it, not so much for anything else. You're able to tell those things, and like I said, like the decision for me, and I think most college kids, doesn't come down to whether a university or a college has a field house. Do they like the coaches? Do they think they're going to be able to engage well with the coaches? What's like the social life like? And I experienced both of that on a recruiting trip to Fredonia and to Geneseo. That wasn't kind of a reason why I made the decision to go to Fredonia, not because of how great it was, but how unfortunate the other circumstance was. But I had nothing really, besides the field house. Fredonia was not really the reason why I was going to go there, nor I don't think the kids that are on the team now in 2022, the reason that they pick Fredonia is their field house, quality of education, quality of the education department, music program, just some things that other colleges can't compete with. Like at Alfred State, we have machining and engineering. We don't have an education program, so I'm not competing with schools that are going to recruit kids that are going to compete, are going to be education majors, right? So there's a lot of factors that play a role into it. We're kind of short on time here. This was part 2 of the recruiting conversation with Charles and Ferna and the Forts Athletics Life and Coaching Podcast. Thank you very much, and have a great day.